All this is Dr. Mubin Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. Thank you very much for giving me the time and opportunity to take some days off. I really had lots of fun. I hope that you enjoyed the Christmas and the holiday season as well. And I hope that you are staying safe and blessed. So let us start our discussion today. There is so much that has happened during these 3-4 days that we can probably continue for a very long time. However, I wanted to make sure that we can look at some of the resources to track vaccination. I'm sure that majority of you are already aware of these resources, but just to be on the same page, I'm going to be sharing those resources together as well so we can start tracking the vaccines and vaccines progress together. So let's start. I hope everybody is doing good. So Carolyn is here, Margaret is here, France is here, DDS is here, William Days here. William is here with a question. John Snyder is here, and JTJ is here. Wayne is here. So many folks are here. And thank you very much. I've gotten so many coffees that I am loving it. Every time I go for coffee, I love Starbucks Pike Place. Every time I go for coffee, I think that somebody bought me this coffee. So thank you very much, Cool Beans, for your kind gift and gifts. So let's start. So this is drbeen.com. We have year-end sales going. If you wanted to earn CMEs or CEs or just wanted to be a lifetime member, you can check plans here. With this, here is a link about the US population, and it is a pretty older comparison, 2000, 2010, and then onward. So we are at 2020 now. I think that current population stands at about 328 million. But what is important here is to notice that the children under 18 are about 72 million. So there must be a little bit more. So the percentage is about 25%. Just keep that in mind, that 25% of the population is already folks who are not going to be vaccinated, at least in the current rounds. Then this is another very interesting thing. So, of course, you know that my worry is if we don't get enough vaccines that the herd immunity gets developed. And the way I look at it is that, let's say 72 million or 80 million children are at a lesser risk. Then there are 20 million more people who have become infected. So 100 million. Then we are left with 200 million. And then we have to figure out how to vaccinate. So look at this poll. This was a poll done by Kaiser, and this is an NPR news here. And I actually liked it. About 71% of responded. So they had asked that, would you get vaccinated or not? So 71% folks now said in late November that we will. This is up from 63% when I reported that as well in August. So this is a decent majority. And then a couple of more things. About a quarter of the respondents, they said that we will not want to have the vaccine. And in that, there were multiple reasons. For example, some folks were concerned about the side effects of the vaccine. These are rapidly produced, these are rapidly approved. They're not sure if the side effects are going to be something in the long term or later on. They're not tested on animals. So there are all kinds of concerns. And these are valid concerns, meaning we don't have to go and start criticizing somebody who has a concern. In fact, we should try to present as much data as we can, and then people can make their own mind. So about a quarter of the people say that they're concerned. And then, interestingly, then there is a separation. Based on the kind of concerns. For example, Republicans here, 42% of the Republicans think that there is a skepticism about the virus's virulence itself, or its lethality itself, or even if its existence. And then there are folks who are concerned about, for example, Black Americans are more concerned about its side effects. So there are all kinds of concerns, but still that population is now about 25% or more. So if I see here, this is one more, this is New York Times. And here they are also reporting on the same survey. So 71% of respondents said they definitely would get the vaccine, and 8% increase. So that is what we just saw. Look at this one. Another 39%. So I think another 71 plus 39 actually becomes 110. So this probably starting from another may not be the right word, or maybe I am losing the context here. But another 39% said they would wait to see how the vaccine works for other people before getting it themselves. So I'm sure that they are actually part of the 71%. 9% would get the vaccine only if it is required for work, school, or other activities. 12% said they would probably not take a vaccine, and 15% said they would definitely not get the vaccine. So about 27% says that no, we are either reluctant or we would definitely not get the vaccine. And then their hesitations are different. For example, Black Americans appear most worried about side effects, or that they could get COVID-19 from the vaccine itself, which is not going to happen. The vaccine, at least Moderna and Pfizer, are just the messenger RNA to make spike proteins. So that would not create COVID. Nearly 1 in 4 Republicans don't want to get vaccinated because they don't believe COVID poses a serious threat, and so on. So there are many concerns, regardless of the political leaning or other way of looking at a demography. There are concerns out there. There are concerns about fertility. There are concerns about remember the nanochips in here, and the concerns about tagging in here. So there are some too much on the extreme side, some more reasonable as well, but there are concerns. So I wanted to make sure that we can at least keep an eye on this 71%. I think as the vaccination occurs and people are able to see the results, they will continue to make up their mind either for the vaccine or against the vaccine as they see the data evolving. Now the question is, where do we go and see the data? And I found this tracker on Bloomberg to be one of the best trackers so far. It is possible that other trackers would start evolving. I thought CDC will have a better tracker. They do have a lots of data, but their tracking is not that great. So this one, John Hopkins, I'll show you John Hopkins tracker as well. But I found Bloomberg's tracker to be the most detailed. So check this one out. Here, what they're saying is 4.6 million shots given globally. And in the US, about 2.13 million vaccinations in the US. Now, this has been going on since 14th of August. Today, we are on 28th, so 2 weeks. It is rather slow pace to have only about 2 million vaccines doses given in 2 weeks. If that is the pace, then a year has 52 weeks only, correct? So that means only 52 million people would get the vaccine. I think this is logistics. It is in the early phase. People are gearing up. Centers are becoming prepared. We are in the naive or infancy of the logistics. But as the logistics become humming and honed in and sharper, and people become more used to managing and working with the vaccine transportation and storage and administration, this will pick up the pace. I also think that we started with Moderna that had a higher need for cold storage, although dry ice would work, but still the cold chain was needed. And we started with Pfizer that needed the cold chain. Now Moderna is in here as well, and Moderna can go out to much more sites because of less requirement on the storage side. Plus now we have 2 separate vaccine providers. So the total doses of the vaccines are going to be increasing as well. So let's look at this site for a second. I really love this one. So here what they have is, and what they say is, I think that is a great journalistic work here without looking at anybody's leaning. So New York, Bloomberg is a good site or a bad site politically. Look at the data that they have collected, and they say we collected the data from CDC, from white papers, from public information, from conferences, from vaccine sites, and so on, from state sites. So they have done a lot of hard work here. And look at this, if you hover mouse somewhere, for example, North Dakota, 1.7% population vaccinated. My state here, California, 0.76% vaccinated. Texas, 0.51% vaccinated. And these numbers might be changed by the time we are looking at them. Florida, 0.57, and so on. West Virginia, 1.7%. South Dakota, 1.7%. How is Wisconsin doing? I lived in Wisconsin for some time, so 0.68%, and I lived in Massachusetts for 13 years. So if I go here to Massachusetts, 0.52%, and so on. So this is a beautiful map. Then, if you see here, this is another chart for the vaccine tracking. So US official total first doses allotted to 15 million people. And then doses administered are 2 million. Ideally, US is behind. We were supposed to get about 20 million doses administered by the end of the year. And I had been saying that this would be somewhere the first week of January. So now we are hearing that it might not even be the first week of January. It might actually be January itself. So that means if the whole January is gone, vaccinating healthcare workers and the nursing home residents, then the whole destination keeps getting pushed for the rest of us. And then they have the numbers for various states. Then there is another interesting chart here, which compares various countries. So here, if you see US 2 million, US right now is the most vaccinated country. So 2.1 million doses. China is second, 1 million. I actually am kind of wary of these numbers. I'm a little frustrated with Chinese vaccine data as well. People keep asking me about, for example, Sinovac or CanSino or Sinopharm, and the data is so sparse. For example, Sinopharm, I believe, is China's state owned lab that has produced it. And there is not much data. And I would show you some sites here where people have said that journalists have said, we tried to reach out to them and said, can you give us some more data? And they just do not even respond. So these numbers, how good or bad they are, I just cannot say. UK, 625,981. So about 750,000 folks, and so on. Russia, Israel, Bahrain, and Canada. So I thought this chart is nice as well. The link to this is present in the description if you wanted to keep an eye on it. Then I loved this part of the tracker. Here, what they're talking about is, for example, look at this. Pfizer BioNTech, 44,000 people. I think that is a trial. And then storage requirement, efficacy. Pfizer was the first company to report positive phase 3 clinical data. It plans to produce 50 million doses in 2020 and 1.3 billion in 2021. I wanted to do one more thing. So I'm going to depart from this chart for a second. I had talked about the doses for the USA, and some folks had commented that the number of doses that I'm talking about are actually for the world. So I thought I would bring in some references to keep us on the same page. So if you see here, this is Pfizer. And this is 23rd of December. US government orders 100 million additional doses of the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. A total doses for the US of 200 million. This is the first line here. And then All 200 million doses expected to be delivered by July 31st, 2021, allowing for 100 million people in the US to be vaccinated. So if I go back to the population, 328 million folks, about 80 million children, then 20 million already infected, about 100 million are in this slice. For the remaining 200 million, if all got vaccinated, then we need 400 million doses. And you're seeing here 200 million doses here. This is Pfizer. US has just paid them $195 billion, and they are supposed to provide additional 100 million doses by July 31st. So that is for the Pfizer. I thought there was an interesting set of comments here by Pfizer, which was interesting to see. So number one, do not administer Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to individuals with known history of severe allergic reactions. So that is one. Appropriate medical treatment used to manage immediate allergic reactions should be available. Immunocompromised persons, including individuals receiving immunosuppressant therapy, may have a diminished immune response. And check this out. Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine may not protect all vaccine recipients. We know that, but they have become very transparent about it. Then they've given the percentages of the various side effects. Then they have talked about here that there are the vaccine administration to pregnant women the data is insufficient. Similarly, for breastfeeding women, the data is insufficient, and so on. So I thought this was interesting as well. The link is present in the description if you wanted to read it. So 200 million doses here for the US. So once again, it says these are ordered by the US. All 200 million doses expected to be delivered by July 31, allowing for 100. Then if you look at this one, this is Moderna. And Moderna, this is December 11. And Moderna says total of 200 million doses ordered by the US government to date. Additional doses ordered today will be delivered in Q2. So Q1, both companies would provide 100 million each. And then Q2, both will provide 100 million each. So 200 from Moderna, 200 from Pfizer, 400 million doses, which are good for 200 million people. In addition to that, US has struck a deal with Moderna to reserve a right to order an additional, I believe, 300 million doses if necessary. And I think that is a smart move. If you say, well, 400 million are sufficient if everyone got vaccinated other than children, then why to have another 300 million? I think it is a smart move because if, God forbid, some variants pop up that start causing another issue, then maybe we can ask them to change the vaccine and start providing that vaccine. Similarly, if the vaccines are wasted or spoiled, we have the vaccination available as well, more available as well. And please realize, excuse me, that CDC has a condition for the vaccines that when they reach their destination, there has to be 2 days worth of quality assurance of the vaccine before it can be administered. So I do not know what are exactly the steps in there, but I'm sure that they are going to be looking at if the vaccine on its route reached the destination with the correct temperatures and is stored correctly and so on. So there is a requirement for 2 days delay for administration because during that time, quality assurance has to be done. So that is actually a good thing, although it has delayed the administration. So then going back here, look at this. Pfizer-BioNTech trial started here, trial results are here, and the results are given, and then approval here, and so on. So beautiful way of tracking it. Moderna, trial started here, trial finished here, approvals present here, and then they are moving on. AstraZeneca is really interesting for me. Why this is interesting is this is that vaccine, which is at one point they said we have 62% efficacy if we give 2 full doses. Then they said we have we have 92 or more percent efficacy, or 90 or more percent efficacy if we give half dose early and then full dose later on. Then they did another funny thing, and that is they took the average of both, which I think is a wrong way of looking at it, because average means that this is the minimum efficacy we can count on. But if you give 2 full doses, we would end up with 62. So what are you going to do? Give one person 2 doses full and then another person half dose and 1 dose, and just keep repeating it so that we have an average of 70%. So I think that averaging was a wrong way of looking at it. And today I was listening to CEO of Astrazeneca, who was saying we are 100% efficacious for severe cases. But the data is really not there yet. So I'm not sold on AstraZeneca yet. From a technology point of view, from the vaccine itself, some people would prefer it, some people will not prefer it. But generally, from data point of view, I'm not yet sold. But they still are doing good. They have, I think, 1 billion doses order in India. So that is a good outcome for them. The data is still not there. Then if we end up in these areas, for example, Novavax, this is a small biotech firm, has never brought a product to market, which is also the case with Moderna. It received more than 1.6 billion from the US and 399 from Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness. The stock rose by 3,000%. So their trial has started on September 28th, and the enrollments are still continuing. Johnson & Johnson, this is another one. Their trial is still continuing, and their trial is not finished yet. The important thing for Johnson & Johnson is that they only require 1 dose. So you don't have to wait for 2 doses. And what they're doing in the US is that for Moderna and Pfizer, when they give somebody the first dose, they keep the second dose for them in reserve. So if, for example, you've gotten 40 million doses in various centers and you have administered it to 20 million, you have to keep the remaining 20 million in storage for these folks for their second dose. So that is an interesting one. For Johnson & Johnson, you just give one dose. So then these Sinovac trials started. They have early approval in some countries, and they are just doing it. CanSino, the same thing, early approval in June, trial started in September, and that's just what it is. Same is for Sinopharm here. So trial started on July 2020, results 86% efficacy on 9th. Approval they already got in August 28th, and I cannot find lots of data about them. It bugs me that when I look at the European and US based companies, as much as we bash them and we are kind of saying that they are going to be changing us and they're going to be changing our DNA, they are much, much more transparent with their data. We like them or we don't like them, but they're putting the data out. Here we have a bunch of companies whose data is just not as openly available as should be. Then this is the worldwide contract for the vaccines, but I wanted to show you this chart as well. I love this chart. So if you see here, if you hover your mouse on this side, for example, look at the vaccines here: AstraZeneca, Novavax, Pfizer, Sanofi, and so on, Moderna. If you hover your mouse on this side, what they would tell you is that Moderna total 411 million doses, US 200 million, European Union 80, Japan 50, and so on. So that is where Moderna is selling. And if you go to the other side, so for example, if you go to US here, and if you hover the mouse here, you would see where US is procuring the vaccines from. So both ends of the chart provide you very interesting data. So for example, for US, 1 billion doses total that US wants to acquire. AstraZeneca and Oxford 300 million, Moderna 200 million, Pfizer BioNTech 200 million, and then Novavax and Johnson & Johnson and Sanofi GSK. So I thought that was interesting. For example, if I go here, India was here. So if you look at this, India, 1 billion doses from AstraZeneca, another billion doses from Novavax, and then 200 from Gamaleya. So I think we'll talk about those vaccines next. I'm still trying to collect data, but I thought this is a beautiful chart as well. And there is a vaccine that had failed in trial, and that was remember the Australian vaccine that created the test positive for HIV, while there was no HIV, but it caused the test to be positive. So this is a beautiful chart. And then they continue on with the world data as well. And they talk about, for example, here, US, Canada, US, and you can continue to hover your mouse over and see how the order of the dose, the international contracts for the dosage, how is that covering that nation? So for example, 230% population is covered with the Australia's orders of various vaccines that they are asking for. So down here, more data. So I thought this was a beautifully put together system. I had wished that CDC or WHO or somebody like that had it, but here we have Bloomberg that has it. So I would request you to look at it. Okay, so then there is another tracker. This is Johns Hopkins. Although Johns Hopkins had done a very good job of tracking the COVID, but their vaccine tracker is in infancy. So if you see here, they're talking about these blue ones are the states that have data available. So for example, if I click on Texas here, I would go down here to Texas's data. And so what they're saying is vaccine tracker doses administered in Texas, 146,988. Today, 7,241 doses were administered. So interesting data here. Confirmed cases, deaths, total tested positive, total administered, today administered. So good data, but still slightly behind on their numbers. So that is Johns Hopkins. I think in the coming days, we will be tracking this Bloomberg and Johns Hopkins, and maybe CDC would have something better as well, and WHO. So we'll be tracking vaccines a little more. Then I used to say that I like Moderna more than Pfizer because of two reasons. One of the reasons was lack of severe reactions. And of course, now I think everybody knows that we have one severe reaction to Moderna as well in a Boston hospital. So that kind of makes them equal now. The second thing was Moderna still has one benefit, and that is it is 100% in preventing severe COVID or death from COVID. And we'll see as more vaccinations occur that what really happens. This is, once again, I have shown it in the past, COVID-19 vaccines and severe allergic reactions. So not much here other than saying that, hey, if you administer the vaccine, please keep EpiPen and other preparations with you to manage the anaphylaxis. This I've already shown you. This I've shown you. This is the China's Sinopharm. So Sinopharm is their state-owned lab or partially owned lab. So how effective is this? So here is some data. And again, these are articles. I was trying to dig for the actual data, not the interpretations and articles. So if you see here, excuse me, Sinopharm is among two Chinese pharmaceutical companies. The other is fellow front runner Sinovac to have created their vaccine via the traditional method. So traditional method is where the virus itself is chemically inactivated and then introduced in the body. So body has the whole virus in broken form to make antibodies against it. So that is how their vaccine is, and they're saying that their efficacy is 86%. They have 31,000 volunteers across 125 nations, and they have already about 1 million people had been given emergency doses in China, I believe. But exactly where the data is. So look at this. China has not yet published any late stage information about any of its vaccine candidates despite its rollout. Without that data, it is unclear how safe and effective any of the experimental Chinese vaccines are. And I know that these companies are making a big push in many, many countries to say use our vaccines. So, for example, this Sinopharm is used in UAE, Morocco. It was being used in Peru, and they stopped it after a severe adverse reaction. It is being used in Bahrain, and I believe in more countries as well. Then, if you see here, this is one more. Just I was trying to figure out data. So here, these are the vaccine types: inactivated virus, so chemically inactivated SARS-CoV-2 virus, or weakened virus or adenovirus type things, just like we have Astrazeneca, and then messenger RNA vaccines, for example, Moderna and Pfizer. Then there are the Arab nations first to approve Chinese COVID vaccine despite lack of public data. So this, I actually think that there is a trend here that, and I'm not bashing China for the sake of bashing them. I just think that the more data has to be available. But at the same time, if you see here, they have started asking various countries to start using them. And then here is an interesting one from USA Today. This one, so I think that you can appreciate that we are hopefully moving from just the cases and what is happening there towards, let's see what is happening in terms of vaccination. So this chart is very interesting. This is how CDC in the US is keeping track of the data. How much of this is available to us is not known yet. But if you see here, this is let's say here at the top of the chart, this is a vaccine administration site or a doctor's office. And when they administer the vaccine, that information goes to CDC, and then commercial distributions occur, and there is a Tiberius engine, software engine, that is looking at all of this data. Then similarly, vaccine finders, and there is data lake over here, vaccination administration management, and then there is data lake over here that they're using to process and manage the vaccine administration. So kind of slight departure from our regular mechanism type discussions, I wanted to bring us all on the same page for how the vaccine distribution is happening. I think it is slow for the time being, but it will pick up. So that is what I have. I had a great time, 3 days off, and then the fourth day, Sunday, got mixed with it, had lots of coffees. So if you wanted to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. But thank you very much, and I hope that you're keeping safe. I'm going to quickly look at some comments, and then we stop. And there are two things I want to do further. One, hopefully tomorrow, I'm going to collect more data about other vaccines and talk about them. And secondly, I want to collect some more data about ivermectin and talk about that. The way I look at this is those who do not want to have a vaccine for whatever reason, at least they should have other tools for them. That includes things like ivermectin, and we should all have those tools with them. But in addition to vaccine, these things should be available. So I wanted to once again double down on where the ivermectin is and where are the other supplements and things stand. So we want to talk about that. Plus, I would like to talk about other vaccines too. If you have some idea for some other topic, please let me know. One area that is still sorely missing in data is pregnant women and the lactating women and early childhood vaccine or management. So there is Alicia says, please review use of Dapson in the ICU setting. Okay, will do. What else? Taylor says, which vaccines are most likely to protect against additional variances of SARS-CoV-2? So, Taylor, so far, the current variants, may that be South Africa or UK, I think that is covered by the current vaccines. We'll know a little more in another week because some of the vaccine companies are actually testing it on the new variant. US is testing it on the new variant as well. So I think we'll have some data available soon. I saw a news today, somebody tweeted that at me from India, that there is a variant that is causing reinfection. That will be bad. And still, it was a news article, not the data itself. I need to look into that before I can talk about it. So I would say, let's keep our hopes high that these things will work. And then we'll see if there is a tendency in some variants to cause more damage. Wow. So Wayne says that South Africa banned import of ivermectin with criminal why? Why it baffles me. Somebody tweeted at me some doctor's comment where he said that my center and all elite treatment centers do not use ivermectin. And then he had written a statement down there that my religion is my religion, your religion is your religion. And I thought that what a bad statement to make, because it's not about religion, it's about data. You are a doctor. Your job is not to say this is my belief. Your job is to go look at the data and then make a point. So without looking at the data, just considering that I'm not going to use ivermectin, that is my religion, and if you are using ivermectin, that is your religion, what the heck is that? So somebody had asked me to comment, and I was just so baffled at that commentary of that doctor that I had no words to tell him. That was just so silly. So I think we should talk more about ivermectin. I'm so sorry that South Africa is doing this. I do not know why. Machiavelli says, are medical people under gag orders? So I think that those who are, so this is where I enjoy my freedom. I do not work for any hospital or university. I run my own organization. I am the CEO of it. So when I will be under pressure, I think I'll be fired from my company, but that's about it. Till that time, I can talk and say what I think is right. But it is possible that other employees of hospitals are not that much of at liberty. I'm seeing that some people who have spoken, some doctors who have spoken on TV have been educated by their HR departments in their hospitals. So I don't think there is a gag order, but still these organizations do not want to have their doctors talk about something that goes against their approach. Kyler says, don't be cheap, buy the Good Doctor coffee for New Year. Absolutely. So Barbara Warren says, yes, we are all very concerned. Ulman says, I've been trying to find out if the drug companies all use the same ingredients for their preservatives and additives. Ulman, ideally, the FDA's papers that I have shared with Pfizer and Moderna and Pfizer, they contain the ingredients, but still polyethylene glycol was, at least either I missed it or they were not there. So there has to be some place where all ingredients are. Because this is really strange. Wayne said that as well. That South Africa, why banned ivermectin? So JTJ says, my relative has long COVID and used Dr. Bean's suggestion of lymph drainage massage, and it has helped her a lot. Not a cure, but helpful. Yes, eventually we got to figure out what's going on underneath and then fix that. Hey, Japan. So I think you are Japan, right? So, teacher Luffy, I'm always learning from your valuable posts. Thank you. You're very welcome. Kate says, I was a long hauler in December before testing 3 month wheezed, then just went away. Research says take zinc among other bits and minerals. Very interesting. I did not think of zinc. Susan says, excellent presentation. Thank you very much. So please keep an eye on this Bloomberg chart until some other charts become available. So I do not know your leaning. You like Bloomberg, you don't like it, but at least look at the chart. In the meantime, I think it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on that data. So SP Loof Monkey says, how much is the cost for a shot? 100, 200, hundreds of billions of big pharma and revenue. Yeah, so the cost that I know is many of the Chinese or other vaccines are below $10. I believe Moderna is $29 and Pfizer is $19. But of course, these are free. So government is paying, which means the taxpayers are paying. Eventually, we are paying, but in a different way. That is correct. And if you see, I have always kept a very even keel about China or other. Maybe there was one time when I became angry at China. And even then, for that one time, I got a lot of heat. But data should be available. So Chris says, why are the cases deaths so low in sub-Saharan Africa, Ethiopia, Ghana? Chris, have to see it. Is it that they have, for example, hydroxy or ivermectin, or um, they have less spread for some other reason? Maybe their vitamin D levels are better. I have no idea. And I would do some research. The problem is the data collection itself is sometimes not, the data is not as easily available to look at these factors. Janet Janet has a great idea. I need a GoFundMe project to start a votive candle Etsy site for a Fachi worship candle. Who's with me? Fachi worship candle. That will be interesting. Okay, so let's just look at some latest comment and then we stop. Um, there is a Frances money machine. I saw a question here. Here it just keeps shifting. So here is a question. Do we need to test for PEG allergy before Moderna or Pfizer? So they are saying that it is probably polyethylene glycol. Maybe we should test. How they are saying is that anybody who has severe allergies to other things, they should not take it. So that is how they are saying it. Cool. So, JTJ, Pierre Corey interviewed by Dr. Sam Dubey on YouTube about his testimony for Congress and his dismissal from St. Is he dismissed from St. Luke's? That will be terrible. Jeremy Nish says, thoughts on possible vaccine trigger of long-term autoimmune disease because of antigen cross reactivity. So, good question. Jeremy, the amount of antigen given is very tiny, number one. Number two, it does not replicate in us. So imagine if the same amount of virus was given, it has the capability of replicating, dividing, increasing in numbers, entering the other cells, then increasing in numbers, entering in other cells, and just keep going. And in that process, harassing our immune system so much that in some people it just becomes a storm. Our immune system says, "Fine, I will take care of you," and in that process, destroy us in that procedure as well. The vaccines cannot do that. So ideally, a vaccine, because it is a tiny dose and controlled dose and cannot replicate an increase in our body, and it will be picked up by our cells and destroyed immediately and presented as antigen, um, it should not be triggering autoimmune diseases. But you're seeing that it can cause immediate allergic reaction. That is not because of the spike protein antigen itself. Instead, that are the components in it which can cause a short-term reaction, but not a long-term reaction. And cross reactivity is still not, so that is a point of trials to see if it can cause cross reactivity. So it is not causing cross reactivity so far, other than some component in the vaccine looking similar to some allergen to which our body is responding. Cool. So the Chandler says, please read my question above. Let's see. William has a question as well. Let me see Chandler's question first. Nina is here as well. Nina, welcome. Chandler says, sorry, so I received my first dose of Moderna vaccine. Is there anything I should worry about? Is the second dose more worrisome? So this is a very, very common thing. So number one, thank you for receiving the vaccine and congratulations as well. Number two, no, if your body has taken care of the current vaccine dose, the second dose is not going to do much. It is not that you are becoming hyper reactive to the vaccine itself. What was happening is that some people were hyper reactive to some other allergen, and some component of the vaccine, for example, polyethylene glycol, so far people are thinking, caused the mast cells to react because they had reacted to something like that in the past. Now, vaccine itself is not causing toxicity or hyperallergic reactions. So no, you should not worry about the second dose. Janet says, Dr. Corey resigned. Wow, that unbelievable. Unbelievable. So for me, why this is unbelievable is that he's talking about a drug that has been used for decades. The company got a Nobel Prize for this drug. It has eliminated so much of the misery in so many countries. It has been used safely for so long. What is so bad about trying to use it? And then if somebody has the courage to speak up, then this is like punishing the messenger. Denise, you are correct that mast cells can just react arbitrarily too. But even in that case, the person has to be in that allergic cadre. And so the very first time when mast cells react, they still need priming and then they react. Yes, they can react to, once they have become primed or once a person is allergic, they can react to just, let's say, shower water or temperature changes or other such things. But so far, the vaccine has not shown that. So Anna says, please speak more about ivermectin. So I'll do that. So tomorrow maybe more other vaccine types. And if I couldn't find data, then ivermectin. And if I did talk about other vaccine types, and day after ivermectin. Cool. So thank you very much for your time today. If you can please do me a favor, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you wanted to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. If you wanted to just support the work that I'm doing, there is a link in the description for that as well. So I would see you tomorrow. If there is some comment, some topic that you would like to see, please put that in the comments. So thank you very much. Stay safe and happy. I'll see you tomorrow.